helping you master Terraform from AWS step by step. Whether you're planning for your first interview or aiming for sharpening your skills for a senior role, this series is designed for you. We will dive into real world scenarios, best practices, and tricky questions which often come up in interview. So stay tuned and level up your Terraform expertise with us. So let the journey begin. So very first question is, what is Terraform? So Terraform is an open source infra as a code IAC tool which is developed by HashiCorp that allows you to define and provision data centers infrastructure using a high level configuration language called HCL. So example is the very first example is the provider block. So there is only one block level, which is AWS, having the region US West 2. Uh, Other block is resource block with the AWS instance with the name resource block name is example containing two attributes, EMI and instance type. Second, what are the main features of Terraform? So Terraform's main features include infra as a code, an execution plan, resource graphs, change automation, and state management. So here is an example of Terraform block containing backend as a S3. Bucket name is my Terraform state key region, and yes. Now, what is the difference between Terraform and other IAC tools like Ansible, Puppet, and Chef? So, the main reason you can see the Terraform focuses more on the infra provisioning, which is like declarative, uses HCL, whereas tools like Ansible, Puppet, and Chef they are more on the procedural side for configuration management. So examples are resource block containing AWS underscore instance, and the resource name is again example. So this is like a declarative, infra provisioning using HCL. And now, what is provider in Terraform? So a provider in is a plugin which uses to manage the external APIs. Providers define the resources and the data sources available. Okay. For example, a provider here is AWS in the example, and the region is given here. Now, coming to the next question, how does Terraform manage dependencies? So, Terraform uses a dependency graph to manage dependencies between resources. It automatically understands the order of operations needed based on the resource dependencies. For example, we can see here three blocks of resource. Web name, their names are web example and example again for AWS. So this is for AWS VPC, AWS Subnet, AWS Instance. And we can see here the AWS VPC, this resource block example contains a CIDR block. And this block, resource block is used and, is referred using, in this above resource, which is by, AWS by the first block level, dot, second block level, and dot ID. Again, this block, the subnet is used in the instance um, by in the subnet ID, where it is, the again the same pattern. Um, the block level 1 is here, and then block level 2 is here. Okay, and dot ID. Now, what is state file in Terraform? So a state file in Terraform uses, to keep a track of, the current state of the infrastructure. It maps the resource defined in the configuration to the real world, scenarios, resources. Example, the Terraform, it can say show. Okay. Why it is important to manage the state file in Terraform? So, managing a state file is a crucial, in enterprise level because it ensures the consistencies between the, infrastructure's real state and the configuration. It enables a feature like change detection and planning. Example, when we go for Terraform init. Now, how can you secure the state file in Terraform? So a state file, it is secured by storing them in a remote backend. Okay, nowadays, people go for something like AWS S3, which is like server side encryption or access control policies. For and Here's an example, how that block is written in Terraform using the Terraform block. The backend is S3, the bucket name, key, and region, and the encryption is enabled here. And now, what are modules in Terraform? So modules are reusable packages of Terraform configuration that can be shared and composed to manage resources, efficiently. So you don't have to, write repeatedly. This is the main reason we're using, HashiCorp, language, configuration language, the Terraform. The example is a module dot, sample example. You can say the module block. Here it's VPC and the source is, the path. Okay. So what is the purpose of Terraform init command? Terraform init command, this initializes the very first command, initializes the working directory containing Terraform configuration files, downloads the necessary provider plugins, and prepares the environment. Okay, so uh, now again moving to the next question, what does the Terraform plan command do? So Terraform plan is more like it creates the execution plans showing all the actions and resources it's going to deploy. Okay, um, and the desired state it's defined in the configuration. So next is, what is Terraform apply? So Terraform apply is more like applying the changes you have reached to reach the desired state of configuration. It executes the plan created by Terraform plan. What is the purpose of Terraform destroy? Again, Terraform destroy is for destroying the infrastructure which managed by Terraform. It removes all the resources defined in the configuration. Okay, using this command. Okay. Now, how do you define and use variables in Terraform? So variables in Terraform are defined using under the variable block, and it can be used by referring to them by this way. Uh, var dot variable name, and example is here the variable block is instance type. Okay, so we write a description why this variable is what this variable is, kind of type of instance, and then the default is t2 micro, which is the default instance type. Again, there is a resource block, which where this variable will be used. You don't have to mention here. You can just refer it by var dot and instance type. Okay. What type of output values in Terraform? What are the output values in Terraform and how they are used? So output values are used to extract information from resources, and it makes it accessible after apply fees. They can be used to output resource attributes once you deploy. Post deployment, you can refer to the IDs and everything, the sources. Now, how do you manage different environment they've brought in Terraform? So, different environments can be managed using workspaces or separate directories with different variable files and state files. Okay, Terraform workspace new Dev, and Terraform workspace new prod, you can say. Okay. What is a remote state and how do you configure it in Terraform? So remote state allows Terraform to store state files in a remote storage backend, enabling team collaboration and securing the storage. Okay. So Terraform, here we see Terraform block is using the backend S3, name, bucket name, the key, and the region. Okay. So using a Terraform block, you can. configure the remote state. And now, how do you import existing resources in Terraform? Existing resources, it can be imported using the Terraform import command, which maps the existing resource to a Terraform resource, state file. Example, Terraform import and AWS instance dot example. This way.